I'd like to welcome you to the art and science of transplanting children. There is no more important task in society than that of raising children. And in my opinion, in nearly 40 years of helping parents and adults do just that, of raising children, the most challenging scenarios that I have experienced and that parents have experienced, teachers have experienced, have been where they were involved in raising children that were not born to them. Sometimes it unfolds rather spontaneously and naturally, and it's a wonderful experience. Rarely is it without challenges. Sometimes these challenges can be very, very daunting, hence the course. And I hope as we go through these 8 hours of material together, it will unfold for you not only why there are challenges in this task, but also a way through. And that is my hope and my job to make sense of these challenges to you. It is hard to talk about very complex things, very difficult things without a metaphor. And I've chosen the metaphor from gardening, transplanting, and I hope, I'm sure that metaphor, as we go through this will unfold for you. It will become quite clear why it is that this metaphor makes sense. I'm a gardener myself. I love to garden, and we're always moving plants from one place to another. And in that is a great challenge, of course. When you uproot and reroot is the main challenge. Will it take? Will it take? You look for the signs of new growth. You look for the signs of blooms and so on. Is it taking? And of course, that's the big question, and how to take it. And there's a science to that. And as I realized there was a science to that, I realized there's a science to this as well. And the science of the art and science, the science of transplanting children, is actually fairly well known. That is, all the pieces of it. It's fairly rare for it to be articulated all in one place, all in one spot. And that is my job, to take all the dots that are involved in research, to take my experience of almost 40 years of helping adults raise children, and my experience of working with foster children in all kinds of settings, in resident homes, in prisons, worked in corrections for many years with young offenders, and of course plenty of foster children in that, with overseas adoptions, and of course as I started my work as an adult therapist, working with adults before I worked primarily in the developmental area, worked with many adults also working through their own issues of adoption or fostering and so on. So that is some of my experience that I come with it, putting those dots together in synthesis and distillation to create a picture that hopefully makes sense to you. That picture will unfold as we go through this course to make sense of of what's involved, when we raise children that are not born to us, or we're participating in that process in some way. The question that I often get asked: how does the attachment-based developmental paradigm apply to step parenting, foster parenting, adoptive parenting, residential programs, group homes, and more increasingly also orphanage settings? Is there a program that can be used to train foster parents from this particular perspective that can help step parents, that can train residential staff workers or orphanage staff? That is, to this purpose, is what this course is dedicated to create this. There is a lot of material. Most of the material is in how to parent. But the challenges are different when you are participating in raising children that are not born to you. The focus has been on just simply taking what works with children who are your own and then applying it to children who are not born to you, and then just doing it harder. And it doesn't work that way. As we go on, we'll find that in many cases and scenarios, what is medicine to a child that is born to you can actually be poison to a child that is not born to you, your stepchild, your foster child, your adopted child, and so on. We want to take a look at what are the conditions in which that happens and why that happens, and what to do about it. And so the challenges can be a bit different. Rather than creating courses, a separate course for each of these scenarios, I decided to try and create one course that applies across the board. Now, this course is not designed primarily for those who make the decisions of where a child will reside. A course that would be designed for judges, a course that would be designed for lawyers. That would be a different course. I have taught those courses as well. But this course is primarily designed for the adults who are raising or helping to raise children who have not been born to them, as well as all the supporting professionals, the psychologists, the social workers, the pediatricians, the family workers, all those involved in the area of surrogate parenting. And I hope this course can make the difference. My challenge here is to distill the principles to the essence in order to make more universal the application. That will be my challenge. Some of you will be taking this course in preparation for adoption, others as social workers in training, others in terms of help with a difficult case that you are the consultant of, and so on. There will be many challenges. The participants' challenge here will be to do some of the work of transposing this into your own particular setting. And I will try to use language that serves across the settings. That isn't language, there is very esoteric language in this field. Every state, every province, every country develops its own acronyms. And I will attempt to use no acronyms in this course if I can, because I want to make it universal in its application. You may be taking this course as a step parent struggling in terms of a 10-year-old or 11-year-old in which something is not quite working well, but on the other hand, at the very same time, there may be somebody taking this course in Ecuador in struggling to be able to train some staff in an orphanage there. And so my challenge is to be able to speak the language that goes across the venues. Yours will be to transpose it into your particular setting. The principles are exactly the same. And if I can distill them to the essence, they will be universal in their application. And that is what I will attempt to do. The questions that we will attempt to answer here, I will just list them here. How are children meant to attach? This is foundational. This is where we will start. Why do children need to attach to the adults responsible for them? Why do they need to attach to the residential staff workers, to their step-parent, to the foster parent, to the adoptive parent? Why do they do? How can we cultivate working attachments with our charges? How do we do this when they're not born to us and we don't have the natural dance that's even happened prenatally? No, how can this happen? How do we do this? How can we overcome some of the obstacles that are there? How does separation impact the child? This is a huge question. I dedicate a whole intensive, a 20-hour course designed to answer this particular question. I'm going to have a great challenge here in session number 4, and I'm going to give you a digest version of the 20 hours here, but hopefully do it in a way that makes sense to you. But this is some of the most important information we can understand. What prevents children from attaching to their new parents or caregivers? Why is there resistance? How can this resistance be overcome? Well, we'll look at 3 different reasons that make it more difficult in terms of attaching and the way through in each case. How can we get through? How can we overcome the impediments to attachment, as I said? How can we keep children safe without subjecting to further separation? There's all kinds of scenarios. You may be a grandparent and you don't like what's happening with your grandchild. A teacher that you suspect has a sibling at home that is abusing the younger child. How can we keep children safe? We can't always just remove them from the situation. Sometimes that's not appropriate, and sometimes it's not in the best interest of anyone. So how can we keep children safe? That's the big question. That's the question governments are mandated with all over the world. They have the mandate to keep children safe. The question is how best to do this. There is a science that informs this process. And in today we must become informed with that science because there's not a single one of us that doesn't have some child in our life that we would like to keep a little bit safer than we see them, that is not getting wounded. And we'll look at that question. How can we help transplanted children adapt to new circumstances? Transplanted children have more than any others to adapt to, and often less to support that process. And so we need to know something about how human adaptation works. It is remarkable how much humans can adapt to, but it is not automatic. It is not automatic. It needs some assistance. And then what kind of discipline is appropriate for transplanted children? I got asked this right at the very beginning of my career. Will you teach discipline courses for foster parents, for adopted parents? And one time I accepted this right at the beginning about 40 years ago, and I realized I was way out over my head. I had no idea what I was doing. 40 years later, I think I have some ideas. And after consulting through many years about this, hopefully I could make sense to you of some things that need to be taken into consideration when disciplining your stepchild, your foster child, your adopted child, or children that are being raised by those they were not born to. So these are the questions we will be addressing.